Ivy sat firmed in the dimly lit living room of Forrester Creations, her fritters clinging the envelope she had discovered hidden in the reverse of the hole, the edges worn and stained from times of being put away down and forgotten. Her heart pounded in her casket like a shower she could neither control nor ignore, and every rational study she tried to muster sounded to dematerialize as the words on the paper swam before her eyes. She had always suspected that Dylan's history held secrets, small hints and half-trueness that Liam and others had casually let slip, but she had no way imagined, no way in a million times, that the verity would be commodity so earth-shattering, commodity that hovered to unravel everything she allowed. She knew about the people she loved most. The disclosure that goggled back at her from the yellowed, folded document was that Dylan's natural mama was none other than Sheila Carter, the woman whose name had caused so numerous temblors of fear and chaos in the lives of the Forresters, the Logans, and indeed the Spectres over the times. Ivy's mind contended, images flashing of Sheila's manipulations, her unforeseen, violent appearances, and the way she had always been a brewing presence behind the most painful and libelous moments in Los Angeles. She imagined Dylan's face, innocent and trusting, ignorant of the dark heritage that flowed through his modes, and a shiver ran down her chine at the study of how fragile his world was, how fluently it could deteriorate if this verity were ever revealed. Her casket tensed as she considered the counter-accusations. What would Liam say if he knew? How would Hope reply? And what about Steffi, who had formerly endured so important trauma at Sheila's hands? Ivy knew artificially that she had to traipse precisely. The verity was like a live line, dangerous and able of shocking everyone into unrecoverable consequences, yet keeping it retired felt like a treason, not just to Dylan, but to the entire family she had come to consider her own. She paced the room, the envelope gripped tightly to her casket, as recollections of Sheila's history schemes and the sheer unpredictability of her conduct hovered to overwhelm her, and in a voice slightly audible, she rumored the name audibly, as if speaking it might ever prepare her for the storm she knew was coming. Ivy felt the weight of responsibility settle over her like a thick, suffocating mask. She had always tried to cover those around her, to be the stabilizing force amid the chaos of the Forrester and Logan families, but now she faced a moral and emotional quagmire unlike anything she had ever encountered. Should she defy Dylan first, gently preparing him for the verity, or should she map a way to reveal it in a controlled manner to help Sheila from using the disclosure to inflict further annihilation? The question visited her as she sank into the plush lounge, gaping at the intricate patterns woven into the fabric as though they might ever offer guidance. Every instinct in her screamed for caution, for tolerance, for a plan, but another part of her, a part she had long buried under times of fear and duty, wanted to scream, to expose the secret and purify the pressure that had erected inside her since the moment she learned it. Ivy's hands shook as she allowed. About Sheila, about how dangerous and changeable she could be, and she realized that any misstep, indeed one born of love or protection, could have disastrous consequences, not just for Dylan, but for everyone who had come entwined in the web of dishonesty, manipulation, and passion that sounded to define the lives of the Forresters, the Logans, and everyone caught in their route. Gashes welled in her eyes, a blend of fear, anguish, and a strange sense of helplessness, and she buried her face in her hands, trying to undergird her racing heart and frenzied studies. The quiet of the room felt rough, nearly mocking, as if the walls themselves were apprehensive of the secret she now carried, and Ivy realized that her life and Dylan's would no way be the same again. The disclosure was a turning point, a seismic shift in the delicate balance of connections, trust, and power within the family, and Ivy knew that when the verity came to light, nothing could be undone. And yet, despite the fear and the brewing query, a flicker of determination sparked within her, the kind that had seen her through particular backstabbings, professional challenges, and emotional paroxysms before. She'd cover Dylan. She'd navigate the minefield of feelings, dishonesty, and peril with every ounce of strength, intelligence, and courage she held, because love, real, fierce, and defensive love, demanded no lower. Ivy rose from the lounge, smoothing her dress and taking a deep breath, knowing that the storm was coming, knowing that the moment to act would arrive soon, and quietly covenanting that no matter what happened, she'd face it head-on, for Dylan's sake, for her own, and for the fragile vestments of stopgap that still held their world together. The verity was out there, dangerous and inarguable, but Ivy's resoluteness, though pulsing, was imperturbable, and in that quiet, stimulating moment, She realized that the disclosure of Dylan's natural memoir wasn't just a secret. It was a test of courage, of fidelity, and of the power of love in the face of darkness. Ivy couldn't sit still. She drifted toward the window, gaping out at the megacity lights of Los Angeles, each twinkling point acting nearly cruelly indifferent to the chaos that had just been unleashed in her world. The wind outside rattled the glass smoothly, and for a moment, it felt as though the macrocosm itself was conspiring against her, bruiting warnings she couldn't ignore. Her mind contended again through the counter-accusations of what she had just learned. Dylan, the boy she had come to watch for as if he were family, carried within him the birth of someone as dangerous and manipulative as Sheila Carter. How numerous times had she dismissed the small, suspicious actions she had seen in Dylan, attributing them as teenage angst or inherited intransigence from his father, Liam? Now it all sounded terrifyingly clear, an heritage not of erraticisms, but of eventuality for chaos, because Sheila's shadow was long, and her heritage of fear and manipulation ran deep. Ivy pressed her wind to the cool glass, her reflection fractured by the faint megacity light, and for a moment, she didn't fate the person gaping back at her. The woman in the glass sounded lower, fragile, yet burning with a quiet intensity, as if the knowledge she carried had burned commodity in her that would not be fluently extinguished. She knew she couldn't hide from the verity, not indeed from herself. The first precedence was Dylan. She couldn't allow him to be blindsided, to have his world turned upside down by a secret that had the power to destroy him emotionally if handled inaptly. Yet at the same time, she felt the familiar knot of fear strain in her stomach, the kind she had felt the first time Sheila had entered the lives of the Forresters, applying falsehoods and intimidation like munitions. Could she indeed begin to defy Dylan? How would she find the right words without shattering his trust, without opening a door that formally opened, could no way be closed? And what of Liam? He was defensive to the point of intransigence, frequently eyeless to the very troubles Ivy now faced easily. She imagined his response, his jaw tight, eyes hard, his mind racing to results or worst-case scripts. It scarified her nearly as important as the secret itself. Ivy's studies turned next to Hope. Hope, with her unvarying sense of justice and honesty, would contend on full translucency, but Hope also had a history of emotional volatility when it came to family secrets and backstabbings. Could Ivy prognosticate how she'd reply? She knew there would be gashes, competitions, arguments that would stretch late into the night and maybe into weeks, a domino effect she could hardly contain. And also there was Steffi, who had endured firsthand the chaos of Sheila's manipulations, and who couldn't be trusted to remain calm. Ivy felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her casket. The secret wasn't just Ivy's to hold or reveal. It belonged, in some sense, to Dylan, but he was youthful, impressionable, and unrehearsed. Ivy felt the incongruity of the situation. To cover him, she might have to withhold the verity temporarily, yet every moment she delayed increased the threat of someone additional, someone with selfish or revengeful motives, exposing it in the worst possible way. She paced again, her mind cycling through every script, every discussion she might have, every battle she might face. Her studies returned to Sheila. Memories of once hassles, dark and violent, danced in her mind. Sheila's menacing smile, the minatory calm with which she had hovered entire families, the way she could twist reality until indeed the most predicated person questioned their own judgment. Ivy swallowed hard. Could Sheila conceivably be planning commodity formally? Could the disclosure of Dylan's lineage be part of a larger, ongoing plan? The study made her skin jag. Ivy realized she couldn't let fear paralyze her. She had to act, but acting meant stepping into a world she had hoped to avoid, one of manipulation, hidden dockets, and implicit heartache. She demanded abettors, but she also demanded discretion. One wrong word, one careless action, and everything could helical out of control. Her phone bucketed in her fund, a memorial that the outside world continued ignorant of the storm brewing in Ivy's life. She defied the appetite to answer incontinently, knowing that any discussion without careful medication could be dangerous. Rather, she took a deep, steadying breath, reminding herself of her own adaptability, the courage she had summoned in the history, the strength she had drawn from guarding those she loved. Yes, the road ahead would be unfaithful, and no bone would understand the full weight of the secret but she'd endure. She owed it to Dylan, to the family, and to herself to navigate this maze of emotion, deception, and disclosure with integrity, intelligence, and heart. The night strengthened around her, the megacity lights fluttering like distant stars, and Ivy eventually allowed herself a moment of clarity. Fear might be constant, query ever-present, but determination burned brighter. She'd defy this challenge, one step at a time, with careful perfection and unwavering resoluteness. Because no matter what Sheila Carter's shadow might suggest, love, fidelity, and courage could still prevail, indeed against the darkest patrimonies. Ivy turned from the window, envelope in hand, ready to face whatever came next. The storm of disclosure had begun, and there was no turning back. Ivy's mind contended as the hours crawled by, the envelope still gripped in her hand like a lifeline to a secret that could enkindle chaos at any moment. She knew she couldn't stay silent ever, yet the study of speaking the verity transferred jitters down her chine. She flashed back the times Dylan had commended in her, laughed with her, participated small palms and frustrations, and the guilt struck her like a physical blow. How could she cover him without betraying him? Every memory now carried a shadow of fear, a silent memorial of the darkness tied to his origins. She imagined his innocent face, eyes bright with curiosity, ignorant of the storm that had still nested in the corners of his life for decades. And also there was Liam. He was strong, yes, fiercely defensive, but Ivy knew Liam's heart could cloud his judgment. He'd fight to shield Dylan from pain, maybe refusing to accept the verity indeed when brazened with it. Ivy realized she might have to carry this burden alone at first, navigating the unfaithful waters of secretiveness, fidelity, and timing. The coming day, Ivy went to Forrester Creations, her way measured, her posture designedly calm, though inside she felt like a tempest staying to break. Every regard from associates, every casual greeting, felt loaded with implicit disaster. She had to see Dylan. She demanded to assess him, to feel the connection, to understand how to prepare him for the disclosure. She set up him in the design plant, sketching ideas for a new collection with the focus and passion that had always made her respect him. He looked up, smiling, fully ignorant, and Ivy felt a stitch of anguish. "Dylan," she said vocally, making her voice steady though her palpitation contended. He turned, eyes lighting up at the sight of her, and she forced a smile, though it was fragile. "Hey, Ivy," he said, the casual warmth in his tone enhancing the weight of her secret. She had rehearsed what she'd say 100 times in her mind, yet in this moment, the words stuck in her throat like monuments. Her aspect drifted to the sketches scattered across the table, the creative spark in Dylan's eyes, the easy confidence he carried. Everything about him screamed the boy she had grown to watch for, not the child of a notorious manipulator. Ivy knelt beside him, pretending to study a design, but her mind was away, spinning through scripts. Could she tell him now? Or stay? How would she frame the verity so it wouldn't destroy him? She pictured Sheila's face, the poisonous delight she'd taken watching Dylan's world deteriorate. That study made Ivy's resoluteness harden. She would not let Sheila win. Not now, not ever. Meanwhile, across the hall, Hope's steps echoed, crisp and purposeful. Hope's instinct for honesty, her desire to break problems head-on, was applaudable, but Ivy stressed it could be disastrous if the secret slipped precociously into the wrong cognizance. Hope approached with her usual warmth, ignorant of the tempest Ivy carried. "Ivy, Dylan was just telling me about the new designs. Isn't he amazing?" Hope said, her smile radiant, her eyes sparkling with the unshakable sanguinity Ivy begrudged. Ivy jounced, smiling noiselessly, but outside, fear gripped her. How could she shield Dylan and keep Hope from inadvertently opening the storm door to Sheila's plots? And also there was the matter of Liam. Ivy knew she couldn't make opinions without considering him. He'd always been Dylan's anchor, and yet he'd a history of undervaluing pitfalls when it came to family secrets. Ivy imagined defying Liam in his office, sitting across from him as he tried to soothe her fears, ignorant that she carried news that could trip the foundation of the very family he sought to cover. The moral dilemma counted on her. How could she recognize Dylan's right to know, ensure his safety, and navigate Liam's emotional impulses, all while keeping Sheila from using the disclosure as influence? The maze of ethical, emotional, and practical obstacles sounded endless. Latterly that evening, Ivy could no longer sit still. She set up herself walking through the quiet halls of the manse, the faint hum of megacity life outside the windows juxtaposed with the thunder of dread in her casket. Her studies turned again to Sheila, however. The impacts could be immediate and disastrous if Sheila learned that Ivy knew. Memories of once competitions, the violence, the manipulation, the sheer unpredictability of Sheila's schemes, pressed down on Ivy with suffocating weight. She pictured Sheila stepping into the room, eyes glinting, a sly smile spreading across her face as she revealed just enough information to destabilize everyone, to turn family against family. Ivy fiddled and tensed her grip on the envelope, a silent oath forming in her mind. No bone. Would manipulate Dylan. No bone. Would exploit this secret. Not while she drew breath. As the night strengthened, Ivy realized the full compass of what she carried. This wasn't just about Dylan, not just about her own courage. It was a test of every relationship she held dear, of every moral compass she had tried to follow in the tangled, dramatic world of the Forresters, Logans, and their extended family. Each decision she made, each word she spoke, could spark consequences that gurgled outward like a tidal surge. Yet, despite the fear, the anxiety, and the query, Ivy's determination formed. She'd cover Dylan, she'd navigate this maze of deception and disclosure, and she'd defy the storm head-on, because love, fidelity, and courage demanded nothing lower. She knew the path ahead would be fraught with battle, emotional bouleversement, and maybe indeed peril, but she also understood that some trueness, no matter how ruinous, had to be faced. Ivy held the envelope near, her resoluteness solidifying like sword forged in fire, and rumored to herself, "I'll not fail him. I cannot fail him." The storm of disclosure had begun, and Ivy, pulsing yet unyielding, set to step directly into its eye.